Usually, WWDC promises a shiny, distant future, but this year's keynote felt different. Instead of focusing entirely on tomorrow, Apple spent most of its time fixing the glaring frustrations you've been dealing with today. That pragmatic tone makes sense when you look at the leadership table. This was Tim Cook's final WWDC before he officially steps down and hands the CEO role to John Ternus on September 1st. Ternus has a background in hardware engineering, carrying a mandate to push physical innovation. But before the company can pivot to that next hardware cycle, they had to stop the bleeding on the software side, where users have been increasingly vocal about system bloat. So the stakes for iOS 27 and macOS Golden Gate are entirely practical. Apple is trying to restore basic trust and basic speed to the devices you already use every day. Which brings us to your immediate decision. When the update prompt pops up, you have to weigh whether installing it will actually streamline your workflow, or if it will just saddle your phone with more battery-draining background processes. This chart illustrates the exact problem Apple is trying to solve. You can see how the steady rise in Apple's software feature bloat over the last 3 years intersects directly with a sharp decline in user satisfaction regarding the speed of older hardware. To see if they successfully reverse that trend, we are going to evaluate iOS 27 strictly as a reaction to iOS 26. We'll look at the user interface, the new artificial intelligence tools, and the bare metal hardware performance. Apple engineered the 2026 keynote as a corrective update designed to walk back previous technical and design errors. The clearest example of that course correction is the user interface. Many users are going to install iOS 27 or macOS Golden Gate simply to escape the harsh liquid glass design language introduced last year. Apple is granting you the ability to turn that aesthetic down. You'll get new opacity sliders to strip away the transparency effects, alongside tighter window corners and cleaner edge-to-edge sidebars on the Mac. The trade-off here is your own time. By walking back a design language they aggressively pushed last year, Apple leaves it up to you to manually dig through system settings and recalibrate the UI until you find a visual baseline that feels comfortable. It's a welcome improvement to the daily experience, but it also exposes a rare moment of hesitation from a company that usually dictates its design roadmap with absolute confidence. The much larger shift in how you interact with your device comes when you swipe down from the center of the screen to activate the overhauled Siri AI. This is where you get a massive leap in contextual productivity. Siri moves past waiting for basic voice commands to being actively aware of what is on your screen. If you are looking at a messy festival schedule in a web browser, Siri AI can read the text, isolate the performances you want, and add them to your calendar. It can proofread your emails directly inside third-party apps, or suggest specific recipes for a watch party based on a group text. But achieving that level of deep system-wide intelligence requires immense computational power. Apple's highly touted in-house tools actually rely heavily on Google's Gemini models to handle the back-end processing. For years, Apple has marketed its closed ecosystem as the ultimate shield for user privacy. Now, they are routing your complex daily requests through their primary data mining competitor. If you want the friction-free automation that Siri AI provides, you have to accept that your personal workflow is no longer contained solely within Apple's walled garden. You are operating in a hybrid ecosystem. Under the hood, the most impactful change has nothing to do with artificial intelligence. It's what happens when you install iOS 27 on aging hardware, specifically the iPhone 11 and newer models. This technical diagram shows exactly what Apple changed to achieve better speeds. On the left, iOS 26 creates a linear bottleneck, forcing older chips to handle tasks one by one. On the right, iOS 27's modified CPU scheduler instantly routes those same tasks to available cores in parallel. This unclogged pipeline yields significant results. AirDrop transfers are 80% faster, apps launch 30% quicker, and Spotlight indexing begins almost immediately. The technical fix is highly effective, but it creates a strange business reality for Apple. By dramatically extending the lifespan and performance of old hardware, they have given you a massive incentive to skip buying a new iPhone this fall. However, all of these evaluations come with a massive geographical restriction that dictates whether you actually get to use the flagship AI tools. If you live in the European Union, you are entirely locked out of Siri AI on iOS 27 and iPadOS 27 at launch. Apple states they are deliberately withholding the feature because of the strict interoperability rules mandated by the Digital Markets Act. Regulatory battles have effectively fractured what used to be a globally unified ecosystem. Your software capabilities are now dictated entirely by your zip code. When you strip away the marketing, iOS 27 and macOS Golden Gate reveal themselves as highly pragmatic maintenance updates, masking themselves as a total overhaul of the assistant's intelligence. This quadrant chart maps out exactly what you should do based on the age of your device and where you live. If you fall into the budget-conscious maintainer category, meaning you have an older device and live outside the EU, this is a day-one upgrade strictly to get those CPU scheduler fixes and speed up your phone. If you are a productivity optimizer with a newer device outside the EU, you should upgrade to leverage the Gemini-powered Siri AI, but hold off on trusting the system-wide proofreading until app developers patch the inevitable early bugs. And if you are a mobile user located inside the European Union, hold off on the update entirely until iOS 27.1. Your primary selling point is locked behind a regulatory wall, meaning you risk early adoption bugs for zero intelligence reward. Ultimately, WWDC 2026 was about Apple stabilizing its foundation. They apologized for the software bloat of the past, cleaned up the interface, and bought themselves the necessary runway before John Turnus takes over leadership.
रिस्क सिर्फ मार्केट में होता है, प्लानिंग में नहीं। DGN कैपिटल मैनेजमेंट के साथ स्टॉक मार्केट, म्यूचुअल फंड और इंश्योरेंस। AMFI IRDAI सर्टिफाइड। योर सक्सेस आर प्रायोरिटी।